Ask for any questions that anyone has, page by page, until we get to the end of the 20 pages. Don't expect it to take an extremely long time, and then offer the same courtesy to the public who has attended, who would like to ask questions. If you would ask your questions, if you would refer to the page number, and if possible, midway or the bottom of the page or whatever to help with the questions, and we'll see how far we can get. We should be able to get through very quickly, I think. So we'll start with, this is to the commission, page 1. And
Just a brief comment.
yes, you may. I do apologize.
There might have been a bit of confusion that I want to make sure that we're all clear on. The 5-page document that you were originally given is the same document. This is just more detail. The numbers are exactly the same. This was just for brevity and clarity, so I didn't overwhelm you with paper. That was the whole point of this. But basically, same document, just lots more of this.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay, starting with page 1, and if you have questions, we'll be a little informal since it's the workshop. Just speak up, and as long as we don't all speak at once, we should do okay. No questions for page 1? Anyone? Page 2.
I have questions on
Go
page
ahead.
2. Okay. On the page 2, the first section there that says total charges for services, I couldn't find this on last year's, all the baseball fees, registration fees and such. Can you just give me a brief description of what that's referring to?
So the way the document is presented, when you hit the blue line, I'm hoping you have colors in front of you. If you don't, please let me know, and I'll fix that. So the blue lines are totals from everything above.
Right,
Yes?
okay.
Okay, all right. These registrations fees, baseball, basketball, flag football, is that what you're asking about?
Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm.
So that would be if we're running leagues and we're charging the family to participate in the league. So obviously with our COVID situation,
Mm-hmm.
that is tenuous, and we're dealing with some uncertainty in that area.
Okay, so is that money that we are expecting, that we've gotten, or what?
All right, so the way the document works is the very first column says original budget. Those are the numbers that you approved on September 25th of 19.
Okay.
The second column are adjustments that we are, as staff, are allowed to do if we just need to move money from here to there with no net effect of 0. That's what's happened during the year.
Mm-hmm.
The third column, proposed amendments, that's what you're going to be voting on tonight, hopefully. The next column, proposed revised budget. So we add all of those 3 columns together, we get that column. Then, year-to-date actuals means what's really happened. So up until now, we're talking about budget and planning and what we hope to have happen. Year-to-date is what actually happened as of May 19th. I have not updated this intentionally so that you would be looking at the same numbers. I didn't want to confuse it all more. Outstanding purchase orders means just that. We have a commitment to a vendor that we will need to pay, and then the available budget is just the math, what's left over. All right, so to answer your question, we started off with registration for baseball of $5,000. We're eliminating that completely because we're not holding baseball during this fiscal year.
Okay, it's not going to start at King Griffin? No, it won't be ready? Okay.
So I had mentioned at our last meeting, what you're looking at is just what we project will happen before September 30th.
Okay.
All right, so keep that in mind. That's why those numbers have so dramatically changed.
Okay.
Are there other questions on page 2?
I have one
Sure.
again, I'm sorry. For total fines and forfeitures, it said original budget from not 2019. It says $71,700, and in this final budget of last year, it said $91,700. Can you? tell me about that.
In last year's budget.
The final in last year's budget says 91.7, and we have here 71.7.
Okay, so
It's
I'm a
20,000
little
off.
concerned when you say last year's, that would have been 19. So fiscal 19 had nothing to do with fiscal 20.
Okay, this is the final budget that we approved last year. So we can't go by the final numbers in this?
Does it say fiscal 19 or fiscal 20 on the front?
19-20.
Okay, then this should tick and tie. This number should be that number. I don't know exactly where you're looking.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry, halfway down the page, the total.
I meant in the previous budget document.
Okay.
So I had mentioned to you I was trying to simplify the process. This document, actually, 85% of it comes out of Munis. There's a lesser chance for human error in this document.
Okay.
The document that you've seen in the past was all hand-generated. So I had some concerns about, we're all human. I key away at 100 miles an hour, and sometimes I type in a 6 instead of a 9. I prefer this because it's coming out of the system. If there are errors in here, I will happily address those, but I'm going to have to sit down at my computer and verify them for you. now.
Okay.
Okay?
Others, Commissioner Tender, on that page?
But they're the same type of thing. In the final last year, under miscellaneous revenues, in last year's it was 328,500, and we have 333,500 here.
What line?
I'm sorry, that is the last, it's almost all the way to the bottom. Total revenues, it says, it's right above cash carry forward.
333,500. That's exactly what has come out of Munis. I didn't type that in. That's actually what was in the system. So,
Okay.
Again, if you have those, and I will happily go through them
Okay,
each individually and double check them for you.
that's all I have on page 2.
Thank you, Commissioner Tender. And I did see the hands in the public, but the protocol of the meeting, we're going to have the commission questions first, and I'll be glad to come back and you can ask any question you want. There will be no questions from the public until the commission is finished. Well, there's no comment from the public until the commission is finished, and then I'll be happy to take comments. I don't mean that to sound rude in any way, that's just the protocol. Ma'am?
I said I could solve that problem.
Ma'am, you're out of order. You are out of order.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Page 3. Are there any questions from the commission?
I have,
Commissioner Tender, please.
I
go
have the
ahead.
same thing on that one.
Well,
Under
and if you have questions, though, about the matchup with the previous budget
Yeah.
and this Munis, I think it's very important to bring those out. I think that's something that needs to be, reconciled, which I'm sure that it will be, but
Okay,
don't leave anything out. Let's get through it a page at
Okay.
a time, and let's address it all. That's what we're here for.
you got it. The top paragraph ends in total legislative, and it was at 104.60, and last year's budget, it was 95,310. And that's the only ones I have on that.
Thank you. Ms. Roman, did you want to address that, or just continue going like we are? with
Again, I would
same
have to
comment?
go, I'd have to go into the system and double check to make sure.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions from the commission? Page 4, please.
I do have I'm the only one talking.
It's really
Everybody else-
okay. That's what this
Okay.
is for. Ask the
Um,
questions.
Total professional up there, the first column, or the first section on the top. I can't find IT. Has it been moved into a different department?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, where has it been moved to?
It has been moved down to 520, I want to say 20. Let's make sure I know what I'm talking about here. Yes, 520. It's on the bottom of page 6.
Okay, thank you.
That professional services, Department 514, has been disassembled and placed into 2 separate funds now, departments.
Thank you. Are there other questions on page 4? from the commission? If I go too fast, please let me know. Page 5.
I have a question on this one, too.
Okay.
Total Public Works Admin, was that a new department that's been created?
No, it's
I
always
did-
been there.
Is it-
Public Works is divided by admin and then staff that's out in the field, yeah, blue collar. Mhm.
Would you repeat that question for me, Commissioner Tender, please?
Yes, I said it says Total Public Works Admin,
Mm-hmm.
and I didn't realize that was a separate department by itself.
Okay,
No, yeah,
thank you.
yes.
Are there other questions on page 5? Page 6?
I have another one here.
And you can just ask it, you don't have to be
Okay.
recognized.
About a little over halfway down, administrative support.
Yes.
In last year's, it was $355,844, and this year, we have it at $1,583.50, or $589. But that's probably the same thing, Munis or whatever.
Can you say that again, Commissioner Tender? if
Yes,
you don't
uh-huh.
mind?
In 2020, in this final, the total was $355,844, and we have it listed at $1,583,589.
It's a different.
May I have a moment to review the document that she's referring to?
Yes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Did you show me the page, Commissioner Tender?
Like here, this is where they all are, in the green. That was the fines and forfeitures,
Okay.
and they're all listed in here like that.
Yes, ma'am. So if you turn to the one that you're questioning right now, that's,
Admin support. What number is that? 520.
I think I can,
Yep, if you see it.
is this the number that you're looking at, ma'am? Because that's just personnel services for that department.
Okay.
You should be looking at
Yeah, I'm trying to find the,
that number there in the blue band at the bottom.
okay. Okay.
Really okay? Did that bring the question to the answer you needed?
No.
Okay.
But it's okay. I think it's the same thing that we've been talking about. I went through to the total and to these totals, and some of the departments I couldn't find, but I'll bring those up as we go through it, okay?
That's a huge discrepancy in our number, though, and I'm thinking that's got to be some personnel changes or something there that were,
No, ma'am, she's looking at a subtotal.
okay, and not the real,
She
okay.
was not
Okay,
looking
I
at
don't
the
have the
total,
document in
yeah.
front of me that she has, but that
She's
can't be
not-
that, okay,
Correct.
okay. Thank you. Moving on page 6, any other questions? Page 7?
I was just curious, under law enforcement, and Chief Ramey's not here.
He's behind you.
Oh, okay. You got my back. I'm curious how many vehicles we have purchased since last year's budget.
Okay.
Because this here is 4 million. And then we have, and I know the whole minus thing is positive and negative and whatever, or it's not, or something like that. And,
So the question that you're asking, Chief Ramey, when you said since last year's budget, are you asking since the September budget started, or are you asking back to the fiscal year before September?
since the last final budget that we'd had.
Okay, the final budget, that this
Yeah.
is the mid-year budget of?
Yes.
How many vehicles have
If-
been purchased?
Because if I understand, we're asking for a proposed amendment of 30,000, and I know you'll be able to answer this, Kiki. The column where it says adjustments made during the year has a parentheses,
Yes, ma'am.
21,000. Does that mean, what does that mean?
That means staff
Mm-hmm.
is allowed to move money within a department to cover unanticipated
Okay.
expenditures, excuse me. So at some point, Chief had a discussion about he wasn't going to use all that money in vehicles, and he needed money in another line item. So it was
Okay.
removed from vehicles and added to something above that has a positive number. And it looks like there's $15,000 in repairs and maintenance to vehicles.
Okay, all right. And am I reading this correctly? Because I'm a number idiot. The last column, where it says available budget,
Yes,
does that mean that that department still has $53,878?
correct.
And we want to add 30 to it to make it 83? Correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Are there other questions on page 7?
Yes, Mayor, I kind of want to piggyback
Go ahead.
on Commissioner Tenders here. Just a question, is the money, going along with what she's saying, with us moving the money around, is it fungible within departments, or is it fungible among the whole general fund? How much freedom do we have in moving that money
I
around?
actually verified this with the city attorney. Staff is allowed to move within a fund
Okay,
if there's a net zero effect.
gotcha.
So if the police department has extra funds, we are allowed to use it for the fire department and vice
Okay.
versa.
So only floating money is fungible, basically. You can move it around, do what you want, right? As long as it's
Correct.
out there on the front. Okay.
Correct, but it's only if there's a zero net effect.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Certainly.
Are there further questions on page 7?
Mayor, just want to clarify.
Sure.
Under vehicles, what is left in Chief Ramey's budget is $53,000. If this is approved, $53,878.72. That's what's left in.
We don't add the 30,000?
She's already, that's proposed, what she's putting in here for.
Sorry,
Yes, that's proposed.
I apologize.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on page 7? Moving to page 8?
I have one there, too.
Sure.
The fire department. Yeah, I assume, and I don't want to assume, so I want to make sure I'm reading this correctly. We have obviously proposing budget to buy the new truck, I assume, for $705,000. And in purchase orders, they're at $984,570. Have we already purchased the truck or ordered
The
it?
truck has been ordered. It's, the total amount of the truck is $984. That's the total of the truck.
Okay,
Originally, the budget included $316. I
okay,
am proposing that we add 709 here. That gets them the vehicles and the truck paid for in this fiscal year. And as I described last time we met, because we have the added funds from the CDL, this gives us the opportunity to pay for this truck this fiscal year and not worry about encumbering it next year.
okay. Is this the same thing that we voted on to do in 3 years, or $250 every year or something?
Yes, but when we went in and looked at the fire truck, we had to write a total PO for that going forward. And so the way I think Munis is set up right now, you just can't do part of it. You have to do the entire PO. So it's realized in the budget, but then in doing our research of this and then having in the additional monies, we thought we would propose it to the commission to consider going on and pay for the entire amount. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Are there further questions on page 8? Moving on to page 9?
Can I ask another question about page 8, just really
Yes.
quick? I just
Move
wanted
back to page 8 for a second.
No, it's okay, it's not even a number question.
Okay.
Has code enforcement moved in with the police department? Are they all in
Yes.
one
Yes, they have.
budget?
Well,
Okay.
not the
No,
same
ma'am.
budget.
Not the same budget
Code
department.
enforcement has their own budget now. That was one of the two that we developed this year. We are not charging salaries there yet. We will start that in the next fiscal year.
Okay. They're just housed over there, right? Kind of. Thank you.
Okay, moving to page 9?
Just out of curiosity, what is protective inspections? What is that?
Building department.
Other questions on page 9? Page 10. If I move too quickly, let me know. Page 11. Page 12.
Page 12, down, little over halfway down, says total interfund transfer. Can you explain that to me? Or to us, or?
Sure. So the 1,685,000, is that what you're asking about?
Yes.
I've never even heard of the interfund thing, so yeah, whatever it is.
That is actually, a formula was developed to compensate general fund from the enterprise funds. Meaning a portion of the lights and the insurance and my salary and city manager's salary. There was a developed percentage. And each month I go through and charge the enterprise funds a percentage and put it into general fund to pay for those things.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Page 13. Page 14. Page 15. Page 16. I do have a question that I wanted to ask, and I wanted to ask it because I wanted to refresh the commission's memory about this as well. Some time ago, the commission agreed with me on a proposal of how we would pay back the sales tax revenue that, for the paving project. That we receive this revenue from the state, and the way it has been set up in the past, it's been set up that we are making payments, so to speak, sort of like a 30-year mortgage, and that's not what our plan was when we borrowed this money for 10 years. It was to sort of do a sweep. As the state sends the money, we pay them back so that we clear that account as we go, so that at the end of 10 years, we don't have this loan against this money that we borrowed. What we were doing, if you recall, back way before the storm, when we paved those 23 miles of road, our idea was to use that low-interest money and to get the roads paved, and then as the money came in from the state, that we would pay it back and have that done. So I guess my question is that what we're doing? And if not, that's what we need to be doing, because that's what the commission asked that we do. So that's where I'm at.
Mayor, we're not doing that as of yet, but we have been working with Hancock. There's several ways that can be done, and the only thing we need to think about is when we do that, we'll have less money for paving. And you definitely, commission has passed to do that, but with that will be done.
And so I'm not saying this to try to put anybody on the spot or to try to, I gotcha or anything like that. The reason I brought this up is because the commission did approve to do it that way. And so we either need to do it that way or we need to rescind that and do it another way. Does that make sense to everybody here? So we don't have to move on that this instant, but I think it's something that needs to be placed on an agenda, maybe the next one, to discuss and to talk about, because this commission did agree to make those payments that way, and that's not what we're doing. And I'd like to see us either decide to do something else or to do what we said we're going to do.
Absolutely.
Mayor, when was that? Because I feel like the past city manager was here when we voted on that. It's been a long time.
I'd have to go back and look at my agenda. It has been some time, but it was I'd hesitate to say without looking at notes. It has been some time ago, but I've been, and I asked a question, it was sort of a rhetorical question because I already knew the answer to it, but I just wanted to bring it to everybody's attention, okay?
Thank you.
Page 16. Page 17. Page 18. Page 19. And we're at the last page, page 20. So I would ask, is there anything that we passed over for the commission that you would like to revisit? Is everybody, I'm not asking if you're in favor of it, I'm just asking, is everybody in complete understanding of what you're looking at? With that, then we are only at 5 o'clock. We have plenty of time left for public input. Because this is a budget public hearing, I will open this now to the public, and you can certainly ask as many questions as you need to ask to come to understanding. So it's open to the public. Yes? You can certainly sit, or you can use, if you need a podium, or if you can just speak into the microphone so everyone can hear, that's all you have to do.
That would be great.
Maybe you can help her adjust the microphone, someone?
Got it. Thank
Got
you.
it? Okay.
On page, if I may start at page 1.
Absolutely.
Page 1,
I don't think we're hearing you, though, on the microphone, so
it's green. It's
if you can
green.
turn it towards you,
Okay,
there you
how
go.
about
Looking for
that? Any
page
better?
one.
It's green.
Mm-mm, it's not. Maybe it's muted, there may be a button we need to push, Ms. Higbee.
It's on.
Just get it a little closer to her.
Okay. Thank you. That's okay.
I'm going to, maybe Graham
Thanks very
can,
much.
not trying to be difficult, it's just, we need everyone to be able to hear, I'm sorry.
Do I have a time limit?
Well, within reason, but I mean, we're not going to cut you off. Ask as many questions as you need.
Thanks. Thank you, sir. Okay, yes. Page 1, line 1, where it has the ad valorem tax of $3,775,300. That included the CRA costs of $126,064. So my question is, why was the CRA tax increment included on the next line? Because it was already included in the first line.
And I'll let Ms. Roman answer the questions, or the city manager, because they're the budget preparation.
The second line you will notice is a debit,
Okay,
so
it's,
that means it's being removed.
And we need a microphone for Ms. Roman as well, so that the public can
Was
hear the
there any-
answers.
if it was already, it was going to be taken out, shouldn't have been left on its own line?
I did not develop this.
Okay,
Thank you.
all righty. Again, on the first page, down towards 3/4 of the way down, there is a $5 million figure in a bracket, but there's no explanation on the left-hand column as account description. What might that be?
You're speaking about the
Oh, I see.
CDL? Are you?
Yes,
I
yes,
said
ma'am.
what you-
That is the CDL that we were referred to. Originally, it was thought that that money would go into the Disaster Recovery Fund 101, and we have since learned that it's for general purpose use. Therefore, that's an addition to revenues of $5 million.
Okay, thank you. Page 2, where Commissioner Tinder had that question regarding the figure of 91,700 versus the 71,700 that was included on the fines and forfeits page. The reason it's only showing 71,700 is because there was a figure for 24,000, which was shot clinic. That figure has been divided, and the 20,000 went from fines and forfeits up to the above category of charges for services. So the $20,000 that Commissioner Tinder is missing from the 91.7 is up above on Shot Clinic, 20,000.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then at the bottom of the page, the revenue line at the very, very bottom, I'm assuming it's a general fund revenue of $15,405,708 in the budget that was approved last September for the 1920 fiscal year. The figure shows $14,432,105.
The difference is the cash carry forward.
Difference is the cash carry forward, okay. Did we have any cash carry forward mentioned in the 2019-20 budget that I recollect?
It would have had to have been. The budget has to be balanced by Florida statute. And there are only 3 ways to balance a budget. To spend exactly the same amount of money that you bring in, which is next to impossible. To use cash carry forward, meaning you're going to take from previous year's savings. Or if there's a surplus, you put it into reserves. So in the case of where you sign the adopted budget on September 25th, that $973,000 was taking money away from previous reserves to balance this year's budget. That is no longer the case because of the CDL.
Thank you. Page 3, in this, basically in the center of the page, R&M machinery and equipment for the amount of $25,000 in the original budget last September. In the first column, you're making a deduction of $9,500. Can you tell me why something like this would be done before the year is ended?
That was used for the other line items. You will
It was
see.
used for a different line item?
Yes, ma'am. If you will see on the blue line.
I don't have those
Oh,
colors.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So the line that says total 001512 executive,
Yes,
you see the 468,204?
I do. I do.
And then next to it, there's a little line underneath those 4 or 5 entries.
yes,
So what happened was we took $9,500 out of repairs and maintenance for machinery and equipment.
right.
We put $500 into office supplies, we put $5,000 into operating supplies, and $2,000 in dues, and $2,000 in capital outlay. So the net is 0.
Okay, thank you. Down a little bit further, it's that same page of page 3, the accounting and auditing description. The original budget was $152,000. In the first column, the adjustments made during the year was, I'm assuming the parenthesis in this case means a deduction of $14,000. And then in the next column, you're proposing an amendment of adding $24,000.
Yes, ma'am, this is based on actual invoices now?
I'm sorry?
This is based on actual invoices now?
So why would you deduct something and then add 10,000 more back in?
Again, during the year, we needed money to fund other line items. And we as staff are allowed to do that. So we took $14,000 out of there and put $10,500 in contractual services, $500 in office supplies, and $3,000 in operating supplies.
And again, it was in the same department.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Page 4.
If I may interrupt for just a moment,
Sure.
are there any other members of the public who have questions? We have time left in the workshop, is why I'm allowing the extra time for one person, but I want to make sure that there are others here who have questions, that they have an opportunity. Is there anyone else? Mr. Walker?
I have one question, but I can wait.
Okay, all right, go ahead, Mrs. Walker.
Again, page 4, the comprehensive planning. It says $258,840 in the original budget, and, in the original budget, it said $253,840, and here we're $5,000 an additional at $258,840. So there's $5,000 more here.
So is that a question or?
Yeah, I'm just wondering those two figures are not the same. What was voted on in September is not reflected in this column.
I think it's going to be basically the same answer you've been giving,
Yes,
giving all along,
I-
that these are staff adjustments that are made during the course of the budget year.
And I would point you at the very bottom of the general fund, which is on page 12 of 20. If you look at that number, are you telling me that you have a different number than the 15,405,000?
No, I have 15. On the 20 pages, I have 15.
So then everything adds to that number. It may have been moved from one department to another, but as long as we're in agreement at the bottom line, I think we're fine.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate your patience while I find my other questions here. On page 14 of 20, in the kind of the center of the page, you have two blocks of information, one as a revenue, one as an expenditure. Can you explain what they may be, because there was nothing in the original budget for them?
Yes,
Is
ma'am.
this something, thank you.
If you look at the very first column, the accounts, those are the account codes that are in Munisystem. So the first three numbers, you see 102, that would be the Hurricane Michael relief, the 501c3 that was established. Anything that starts with a 102 has to do with that. There was no budget in this fiscal year's budget. We are making grants from that money. There should be about $6,015 left at the end of the fiscal year to roll to next year. The next block that you're asking about that starts with 103, that is COVID related. We just established that fund a couple of months ago to make sure that we keep accurate records for everything that's used for COVID related activities.
Thank you. And can you, this is on page 17, at the very top. It's the third line item. It's called interest income bond sinking. What is that? It's a revenue.
Yes, ma'am. We are required to have a special bank account for the payments of bonds. That's all the activity that goes in there. Every month, we transfer automatically money out of the general fund, out of the enterprise funds, into this one bank account at Hancock. When the payments are due on the bonds, the payments are directly taken out of that checking account, or, yeah, it's a checking account.
So the word
So-
the word sinking, just,
That's just a government term.
Yeah.
got it.
Bond sinking. So that's the interest on that one account.
Thank you. And that does me. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the public? Mr. Walker, you said you had one?
Yeah. She's not shorter than I, she was just sitting down. So I think they can hear me anyway.
It's about the public being able to hear you.
I have
Thank you.
just a question. Dealing with the CRA, there was no adjustments there, but what we're looking at was, there was a statement in there as cash forwarding.
If you could let us know what page we're talking about.
Well, it's in, there's only one page dealing with the CRA.
20 of 20.
Excuse me?
20 of 20, it's the last page.
Thank you. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, thank you. Well, my question is this, under cash forwarding, for years I've been trying to look at, since 2002, what set up the CRA was a trust fund. It's a state statute, okay? And that trust fund is never mentioned anywhere. But I'm wondering, is that cash forwarding the trust fund? Yeah, for example,
I know.
I'll just give you an example. It went from, it goes from 200 to $300,000, which is your TIF, which you get in, your revenue. Then it has cash forwarding, and it combines it together
Yes.
for your overall funds that you can use with the CRA. I'm just giving you an example. My question is this, is that cash forwarding the trust fund?
I think you're using different terminology than what the city does, if that's, I don't think they
Yeah,
use the
well, see,
terminology trust
that- That
fund.
is my problem, because the trust fund is set up and per statute. Why isn't it considered in the line items as the trust fund? I don't mind trust forwarding, but according to the statute, that fund has to be there.
We've had
So-
this discussion many times, and I've not been able to answer to your satisfaction.
Yeah.
I'm not the person who set it up in 2002. Maybe Ms. Roman would have some other ideas, because I don't know how to answer that question.
But, okay, the question to me is where the cash forwarding is coming from then?
Previous year's savings. Is previous year's savings is the most simplistic answer.
Okay, thank you.
Did that answer your question, Mr. Walker?
I appreciate your effort on that, but I've been trying to get an answer since 2002, 2003.
Maybe you could come in at some point and because Ms. Roman is new with the staff, and maybe give her the history that you've given to me many times. And I mean that with all gently spoken words. You've given it to me many times, and see if she can come up with a different answer than I've been able to.
Well, yeah, I'll be glad. If she would be glad.
I will happily do that, yes.
Thank you.
And I believe that Ben has a question, Mr. Jenke with the CRA, that he would like, or a comment.
Good afternoon. Ben Jenke, CRA Director. This is just a comment. I wanted to mention that the CRA Board approves each year an annual report, and this annual report outlines all of the revenues and expenditures of the CRA or the CRA's trust fund. So that's the overview, the financial overview that is published once a year.
Which this board approves.
That is correct.
Thank you. Are there other questions from the public about the mid-year budget adjustments, rather? Any questions from the commission that we may have overlooked? Yes, Commissioner Tender?
Just one more.
Okay, okay.
Do we have currently a number of how many employees we actually employ now?
We are currently at 175.
So we're less than we were last year. Last year, I
That's
think
accurate.
we ended at 181.
Was that
If-
including
If I
the-
recall, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no, you.
There were some that were not permanent employees, is that correct?
That's-
I'll let you take in with there.
And was that also including the commission? Because if you add the commission, then we go to 179.
That
We
is
have this, yeah, we have to include you all as part of that because of the fact we do payroll. So we are at 175, 175, 5 for the commission, 180, and then we have some additional part-time people, which are, if you add 2 of those together, becomes 1.
Thank you.
And that changed really recently
Yes, it
because of the
did.
fact that the commission began to receive a W-2, which they had never received in the past. But at the same point, if you read everything written about it at different government levels from congressman on down, you're not really considered an employee of the city. You don't answer to anyone as an employee does. You are an elected official. So there's still some juxtaposition of how that all works. And I'm not sure. I'll just leave it there. But
Yeah.
we definitely changed the way it was done about 2 years ago. So,
Thank you.
any other questions? At this time, I would like to adjourn this workshop. We have approximately 45 minutes before the regularly scheduled commission meeting begins. Thank you, everyone, for your participation.